Nari's fingers danced across the control panel as she ran her routine system check at mining colony Vespera 9. The air smelled of metal and industrial cleaners, a scent she had grown used to over her 3 years working as a technician. Her luminescent skin markings glowed faintly in the dim light of the maintenance bay. "Systems check complete," she murmured to herself, her gill-like structures fluttering slightly as she breathed. Being a Salatian wasn't easy in Craxian territory. Her people were tolerated for their technical skills but rarely respected. "Nari, supply run in 10 minutes, called out June, her supervisor. "You're on inventory duty today." She nodded, gathering her datapad. Supply runs were monotonous but offered a brief escape from the cramped colony quarters. The transport shuttle waited in the loading bay, already half filled with other workers and equipment. "Move it," barked the Craxian guard as Nari boarded. "We're behind schedule." The journey started normally enough. Nari sat quietly, reviewing inventory lists while the transport hummed along its route to the central supply depot. She was checking oxygen filter counts when the first blast hit. The explosion rocked the transport, throwing Nari from her seat. Alarms blared as smoke filled the cabin. Through the chaos, she heard the distinctive whine of raider ships. "Pirates!" someone screamed. Nari crawled toward the emergency hatch as a second blast tore through the hull. Sharp metal sliced across her side, and pain bloomed hot and immediate. She pressed her hand against the wound, blue blood seeping between her fingers. The transport careened downward, crash landing on the rocky surface of Vespera 9's outer mining zone. Through the fractured viewport, Nari saw the raiders' ships landing, sleek, black vessels marked with red symbols. Raiders poured into the damaged transport, sorting through survivors with cruel efficiency. They were a mix of species, united by their mercenary goals and distinctive armor plates. "This one's a tech specialist," one raider said, grabbing June. "Worth something to the right buyer." Nari tried to make herself smaller behind a fallen storage container. Her wound throbbed, leaving a trail of blue that betrayed her position. A tall raider with cybernetic eye enhancements spotted her. He yanked her up by one arm, examining her company badge. "Just a basic maintenance worker," he snorted, scanning her with a handheld device. "And injured too badly for transport." He tossed her back down like discarded trash. "Leave her," ordered another raider. "The environment will finish what we started." No sense wasting a stun charge. They moved through the transport methodically, taking valuable equipment and useful prisoners. Nari lay still, breathing shallowly to minimize the pain. The raiders set charges before departing, detonating them as their ships lifted off. The resulting explosion sent the remains of the transport rolling. Nari tumbled against broken equipment, her vision darkening at the edges. The outpost buildings burned in the distance, black smoke billowing against the pink-tinged sky. Hours passed in a haze of pain. Night fell, bringing Vespera 9's bitter cold. Nari's Salasian biology wasn't built for temperature extremes. Her people evolved in temperate ocean environments, not harsh mining planets. She tried activating her emergency beacon, but it had been damaged in the crash. "Help," she whispered, though nobody remained to hear. The colony was too far for anyone to notice a lone survivor among the wreckage. Pain made it impossible to move far, and her blood loss had weakened her significantly. The stars wheeled overhead as Nari drifted in and out of consciousness. Her people believed that souls returned to the cosmic ocean after death. She wondered if that journey had already begun. A strange sound broke through her fading awareness, the hum of an unfamiliar engine. Not Craxian design, not raider ships returning. Something else. Through blurry vision, she saw lights sweeping over the wreckage. A small ship had landed nearby, its design unlike anything in common use in this sector. A lone figure emerged, wearing an environment suit with an emblem she didn't recognize. The figure moved carefully through the debris, clearly searching for something. Survival instinct made Nari want to call out, but fear kept her silent. Raiders sometimes returned to scavenge what they'd left behind. The mysterious visitor came closer, scanner in hand. When the beam passed over her hiding place, it changed, from green to urgent red. The figure rushed toward her, removing their helmet as they knelt beside her. It was a human. Nari had only seen humans in educational programs. Their species stayed mostly in their own territories, rarely venturing into Craxian space. This one had dark eyes that widened upon seeing her condition. "You're alive," he said, in accented, common speech, quickly pulling medical supplies from his pack. "I'm Tay. I'm going to help you." Nari tried to speak but could only manage a weak sound. The human, Tay, worked quickly, applying some kind of sealant to her wound that immediately numbed the pain. "The raiders left you for dead," he said as he worked, "but they underestimated both of us." As darkness claimed her again, Nari wondered why a human would help a Selasian stranger. Her last conscious thought was that perhaps the stories about humans weren't entirely accurate after all. Nari woke to the soft beeping of unfamiliar medical equipment. Her vision cleared slowly, revealing metal walls that weren't part of any Craxian design she recognized. Pain still radiated from her side, but duller now, managed rather than overwhelming. She tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. "Easy. There," said a voice. "You'll tear the seal." The human, Tay, moved into her field of vision. He looked tired, dark circles under his eyes suggesting he hadn't slept much. In the better light, she could see he had features that marked him as distinctly human. Rounded ears, no gill structures, and skin without the faint luminescence of her own people. "Where am I?" Nari asked, her voice raspy from disuse. "My research vessel," Tay replied, checking the readouts on a small medical scanner. "The horizon. Not the most spacious accommodation, but it's keeping us both alive." Nari noticed the ship was indeed small, a single cabin converted to serve multiple purposes. Scientific equipment shared space with living quarters and what appeared to be makeshift medical facilities. "Why?" she managed. Tay looked confused. "Why what? Why help me? Humans and Salacians have no alliance. Your people barely interact with mine." He shrugged, adjusting something on her IV line. "You needed help. I'm a doctor. Well, xenobiologist with medical training. It's what I do." He offered her a cup with a straw. Water, filtered specially for Salacian biology. She drank cautiously, surprised he knew about her species' needs. The water had the right mineral balance, something even Craxian facilities often got wrong. "My ship was damaged in an ion storm," Tay explained, sitting on a small stool beside her bed. "I was looking for parts when I found the wreckage. Wasn't expecting survivors." Nari studied him. Humans were rare in this sector, generally avoiding Craxian territories. The Empire's propaganda portrayed them as technically capable, but physically unremarkable, certainly not the type to brave pirate-infested territory alone. "Your wound was severe," he continued. "Honestly, I wasn't sure you'd make it. Salacian physiology isn't my specialty. Yet here I am," Nari said. "You're tough." He smiled slightly. "And I'm stubborn." Over the next few days, Ty helped Nari regain her strength. He'd fashioned a recovery space in the main cabin, rearranging his equipment to give her room to move as she healed. His knowledge of Salacian biology was incomplete but impressive for a human who'd never officially studied her species. "I learned from observation and old medical journals," he explained while changing her bandages. "Humans are curious by nature." "Craxians say humans are isolationists," Nari replied, wincing as he applied fresh healing gel. Tay laughed. "We're cautious, not isolationist. There's a difference." On the 5th day, Nari felt strong enough to help with small tasks. She noticed Tay had been working on ship repairs with limited success. The communication array was completely fried, and the propulsion system operated at minimal capacity. "Let me see," she offered, examining the damaged circuit board he was fighting with. "This is similar to systems I worked on at the colony." Tay handed her his tools without hesitation. "Be my guest." They worked in companionable silence, Nari's smaller fingers better suited to the delicate circuitry. She was surprised by his trust. Craxians never let Salacians work unsupervised on critical systems. How did you become a xenobiologist? She asked as they shared a meal of reconstituted protein. Always wanted to explore, Tay said. As a kid, I dreamed about what might be out here. My parents were terraforming engineers. They helped make uninhabitable planets livable. I grew up watching new ecosystems develop. That sounds fascinating, Nari said, realizing how little she knew about humans. What about you? How'd you end up on Vespera 9? Her face darkened. Not much choice. The Craxians need technical workers. My family was relocated from our home world when I was young. Most of us were. Tay's expression shifted. I'm sorry, I didn't know. Why would you? It's not something the Craxians advertise. Later that night, as Nari was drifting to sleep, proximity alarms blared. Tay rushed to the sensor array. Patrol ship, he said grimly. Craxian design. They're scanning the area. Fear gripped Nari. If they find us, they won't, Tay assured her, powering down all non-essential systems. We're running dark. They sat in tense silence as the patrol ship passed overhead. Nari could see Tai's hand hovering near what looked like a weapon, something she hadn't noticed before. The human had layers she hadn't expected. Will they come back? She asked when the danger had passed. Eventually. We need to be gone before they do. Tay ran a hand through his hair. The repairs we've done will let us reach the outer rim. There's a neutral outpost, New Horizon. We can find proper help there. We? Nari asked, surprised. Unless you'd prefer to stay here. His eyes met hers. I won't leave you behind. Something warm spread through Nari's chest, an unfamiliar feeling that took her a moment to identify as hope. She'd spent her life being valued only for her technical usefulness. Here was someone who simply saw her as worth saving. Why risk yourself for me? She asked quietly. Tay looked genuinely confused by the question. Because that's what people should do for each other. Human, Salatian, doesn't matter. We help when we can. As the ship's environmental systems hummed back to life, Nari realized that everything she'd been taught about humans was wrong. They weren't distant or cold or calculating. At least this one wasn't. Thank you, she said simply, for finding me. Tay smiled, the expression transforming his tired face. Get some rest. Tomorrow we start planning our escape. Nari settled back, watching as Tay returned to his repairs. An unexpected savior indeed. The stars stretched into bright lines as Tay pushed the ship's damaged engines beyond their recommended limits. Nari gripped her seat, eyes fixed on the navigation panel as proximity alarms blared warnings throughout the small cabin. They're still behind us, she reported, watching the Craxian patrol vessel closing the gap. 3 minutes until they're within weapons range. Tay nodded grimly, his focus unwavering as he guided the ship through a dense asteroid field that separated Vespera 9's mining sector from the trade routes. We just need to reach the dust cloud. Their sensors won't be able to track us there. The ship shuddered violently as a piece of debris scraped against the hull. Warning lights flashed across the console, but Tay's hands remained steady on the controls. How did you learn to fly like this? Nari asked, genuinely impressed as he navigated between two massive asteroids with barely a meter of clearance on either side. Necessity, he replied with a tight smile. When you're a solo researcher in disputed territories, you either learn to handle tough situations or you don't come back. The dust cloud loomed ahead, a vast swirling mass of cosmic particles that played havoc with standard sensors. Tay cut the main engines just before entry, letting momentum carry them into the obscuring haze. The sudden silence was almost as jarring as the alarms had been. Now we wait, he whispered, powering down all non-essential systems. Minutes stretched into an hour as they drifted silently through the cloud. Eventually, the sensor panel showed the patrol vessel abandoning its search, returning to regular patrol routes. Nari released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. That was close. Too close, Tay agreed, carefully bringing systems back, online. But we're clear for now. It'll take about 2 weeks to reach New Horizon at our current speed. 2 weeks in a ship barely large enough for one person. Nari looked around the cramped quarters with newfound appreciation for the challenges ahead. The days that followed settled into an unexpected rhythm. Each morning began with Tai checking Nari's healing wound, his touch clinical, but gentle. Together, they would assess the ship's systems, making repairs with their limited supplies. "Hand me that coupling tool," Tai said on their fourth day, half buried in an access panel beneath the floor. "The power fluctuations are getting worse." Nari passed him the tool, watching as he worked. Humans had broader shoulders than Salacians, and Tai struggled to maneuver in spaces designed for more slender engineers. "Let me," she offered. "My arms are thinner." He hesitated only briefly before sliding out. "Be careful. The power conduit is unstable." She slipped into the narrow space with ease, her luminescent skin providing natural light in the shadowy compartment. The problem became immediately apparent. Microfractures in the main power relay were causing dangerous energy leaks. "We need to reroute through the secondary system," she called out. "This primary relay is beyond repair." "That'll reduce our power by 30%, Tai warned. "Better than an explosion," Nari countered, already disconnecting damaged components. They worked in tandem, developing an unspoken communication that surprised them both. When Nari needed a tool, Tai often had it ready before she asked. When system diagnostics required multiple simultaneous inputs, they coordinated perfectly. During meal breaks, they shared stories. Tai told her about Earth and its varied ecosystems, his eyes lighting up when describing vast oceans that reminded Nari of her ancestral homeworld. She shared memories of Salacian culture, the communal songs and bioluminescent art forms her people created before Craxian occupation. "I've never met a human who listened like you do," Nari admitted one evening as they shared the last of Tai's real coffee, a luxury he'd been saving. "Most species think humans are too focused on talking," he said with a laugh. "But you can't. Learn if you don't listen." On the 9th day, disaster struck. The life support system began failing, oxygen levels dropping alarmingly as the recyclers malfunctioned. "The filters are contaminated," Nari determined after diagnostics. "Something in the dust cloud, particles too fine for our shields." Tai frowned at the readouts. "We have replacement filters, but they'll need to be installed manually from the exterior housing." "That means a spacewalk." Nari looked at him with concern. "The radiation levels out there are dangerous." "I'll do it," Tai said simply, already reaching for his environment suit. "Your suit isn't rated for these conditions," she protested. "The exposure could cause cellular damage. We have no choice." His voice was calm as he checked his oxygen supply. "The backup system will fail in 3 hours." Nari watched through the viewport as Tai made his way along the hull, tethered by a safety line that seemed frighteningly thin against the endless void around them. The ship's external cameras showed him working methodically, hands steady despite the radiation warnings flashing on his suit readouts. Halfway through the procedure, his movements slowed. The radiation was affecting him, but he continued working. When he finally returned through the airlock, he collapsed to his knees, breathing heavily. Nari rushed to help him remove the suit. "You stayed out too long." "Filters replaced," he managed, between labored breaths. "Systems running." She helped him to his bunk, administering the anti-radiation meds from his medical kit. As he drifted into an exhausted sleep, she realized something fundamental had changed in her understanding. Everything she'd been taught about humans emphasized their intellectual capabilities but dismissed their physical resilience. Yet here was Tai, who had endured radiation levels that would have incapacitated a Salacian immediately. For 3 days, she tended to him as he had cared for her after the rescue. She monitored his vital signs, administered medications, and handled ship operations alone. When he finally regained full consciousness, the relief she felt surprised her with its intensity. "You shouldn't have risked yourself like that," she said softly. Tai's tired eyes met hers. "Would you have done any differently for me?" The question lingered between them, and Nari realized the answer had changed somewhere during their journey. "No," she admitted. "I wouldn't have." As New Horizon appeared on their long-range scanners, Nari understood that this flight had taught her more than just human resilience. It had taught her about trust, about cooperation across differences, and about friendship that defied everything she'd been told was possible. New Horizon was just 3 days away when the proximity alarm jolted Tay and Nari from sleep. The warning, lights cast an ominous red glow throughout the cabin as they rushed to the control panel. Craxian patrol cruiser, Nari whispered, her luminescent skin dimming with fear, an involuntary reaction her species had evolved as a survival mechanism. Military class. Tay's expression hardened as he studied the scanner readings. They've locked onto us. That's not a regular patrol pattern. They're hunting specifically for this ship. The communication system crackled to life with a harsh Craxian voice. Unidentified vessel, you are in restricted space. Power down and prepare for boarding inspection. Nari's gill structures fluttered rapidly in panic. They must have tracked our energy signature from Vespera 9. If they capture us, she didn't need to finish. They both knew what happened to those who violated Craxian territory restrictions. Humans were treated with particular suspicion, often disappeared into labor camps. Salacians who fled their assigned work placements were made examples of. We're not giving up, Tay said firmly, his fingers flying across the navigation controls. Not when we're this close. He banked the ship sharply, heading toward a nearby asteroid belt, a dangerous gamble that might provide cover. The Craxian cruiser immediately changed course to intercept, its superior engines quickly closing the distance. They're charging weapons, Nari reported, monitoring the tactical display. The first shot came as a warning, deliberately missing their ship but close enough to send them spinning from the energy displacement. Tay fought the controls, stabilizing their trajectory with remarkable skill. We can't outrun them, he admitted, but maybe we can outsmart them. He looked at Nari with sudden intensity. I need your technical expertise. Can you reroute power from life support to the engines for 3 minutes? Just enough for one push? Nari hesitated only briefly. Without life support, the temperature will drop dangerously fast. Your human physiology, I'll manage. He cut in. Can you do it? She nodded, diving beneath the console and working rapidly to bypass safety protocols. As she connected the final circuit, she called out, "Ready! Hold on!" Tay shouted, engaging the enhanced thrust. The ship lurched forward with unprecedented speed, the sudden acceleration pressing them back into their seats. Tay guided them straight toward the densest part of the asteroid field, a move so reckless that the pursuing cruiser hesitated. They shot through narrow gaps between massive rocks, scraping the hull more than once. The temperature plummeted as Nari had warned, frost forming on metal surfaces within minutes. She saw Ty shivering but maintaining perfect focus, his reflexes impossibly quick as he navigated obstacles that appeared with barely seconds to respond. Just as they reached the far side of the asteroid field, the pursuing cruiser fired again. This time, the shot connected. The impact threw them both forward. Nari's head struck the console, and she tasted the metallic tang of her own blood. Emergency. Sirens wailed as multiple systems failed simultaneously. Engines hit, Tay reported grimly, his breath visible in the freezing air. We can't outrun them anymore. Through the viewport, they watched the Craxian cruiser emerging from the asteroid field, moving more cautiously, but with inevitable purpose. There's a moon, Nari said suddenly, pointing to a small cratered satellite orbiting a gas giant nearby. Heavy electromagnetic interference. Our ship is small enough to land, but they wouldn't risk their cruiser in those conditions. Tay immediately adjusted course, using the last of their engine power to reach the moon's gravity well. They entered its atmosphere roughly, the ship bucking and shaking as Tay fought for control. The landing was hard enough to snap restraints and send them both tumbling across the cabin. When Nari regained consciousness, emergency lights provided the only illumination. Tay was already moving, gathering supplies and weapons she hadn't realized he possessed. They're sending down landing parties, he explained, checking a small handheld scanner. Standard procedure. They'll have tracked our approximate landing zone. What do we do? Nari asked, accepting the emergency pack he handed her. We run. His expression was determined as he checked an unfamiliar weapon. This moon has extensive cave systems according to my scans. We can use them to hide and circle back to the ship when it's clear. They slipped out into the moon's harsh landscape, a barren, rocky terrain under a sky dominated by the looming gas giant. The temperature was barely survivable, their breath-forming clouds in the thin atmosphere. In the distance, they could see Craxian shuttles descending. Moving as quickly as Nari's still healing injury allowed, they reached the cave entrance just as search parties began to fan out across the surface. The labyrinthine tunnels offered protection, but also confusion. It would be all too easy to become lost forever in their twisting paths. Hours passed as they navigated deeper, using Tay's scanner to map their route. Nari noticed how Tay positioned himself between her and potential dangers, his body language shifting subtly when he sensed threats. It was another side of him, the combat medic rather than the scientist. Their luck ran out at a junction where the tunnel split 3 ways. 4 Craxian soldiers appeared suddenly from the left passage, weapons raised. "Halt," the leader commanded. "Surrender immediately." Time seemed to slow. Nari saw Tay assess the situation with a single glance, then he moved. What happened next rewrote everything Nari thought she knew about humans. Tay launched himself forward with explosive speed that seemed impossible for his species. Before the soldiers could fire, he had disarmed the closest one, with a precise strike, and used the soldier's own weapon to disable 2 others. The 4th soldier managed to fire, the energy blast grazing Tay's shoulder. He didn't even flinch. Instead, he closed the distance in a blur of motion, neutralizing the final threat with efficiency that spoke of extensive combat training. When it was over, Tay stood breathing heavily among the unconscious soldiers. Blood seeped from his shoulder wound, but his eyes remained alert, scanning for further dangers. "How?" Nari began, unable to process what she'd witnessed. "Human Special Forces training," he explained quietly. "Before I became a researcher, but humans aren't supposed to be..." She stopped, realizing how propaganda had shaped her understanding. "Physically capable?" He managed a tight smile despite the pain. "That's what everyone believes. It's a misconception we don't mind maintaining." As they bound the unconscious soldiers and continued deeper into the caves, Nari realized she was seeing beyond the surface of not just Tay, but humanity itself. The gentle scientist and the lethal fighter were the same person, layers of complexity she never would have imagined possible. "We need to keep moving," Tay said, checking his scanner again. "More search parties will come when these don't report back." Nari nodded, following him into the darkness with new understanding and a growing realization that they might actually survive this crucible after all. The glittering spires of New Horizon Station emerged from the darkness like a promise kept. Tay guided their patched-up vessel into the docking queue, both of them watching the view screen with a mixture of exhaustion and disbelief. After everything they'd endured, the neutral trading post seemed almost unreal, a mirage that might vanish if they looked away. "We made it," Nari whispered, her luminescent markings pulsing with emotion. "I didn't think we would." Tay's smile was tired but genuine. His shoulder wound from the cave battle had healed poorly, leaving him with limited mobility in his left arm. Both of them bore new scars, physical and otherwise, from their escape from the moon. "We had to abandon the Craxians in the cave system," he said quietly. "They'll have been rescued by now. Word will spread." Nari nodded, understanding the implications. They were now both officially fugitives in Craxian space. There was no going back. The docking procedure completed with a gentle shudder. Tay powered down the struggling engines one final time. "This old ship deserves a rest," he said, patting the console affectionately. She wasn't built for combat maneuvers or crash landings. As they gathered their meager belongings, Nari noticed Ty tucking his weapon into a hidden compartment in his jacket. For a moment, she saw again the fluid, lethal grace he had shown in the caves, so at odds with his usual gentle demeanor. "Will we be safe here?" she asked. "New Horizon operates under independent governance," he explained. "They have strict neutrality laws. The Craxians can't officially pursue us here without creating a diplomatic incident." "Officially," Nari repeated, catching his meaning. We'll need to watch our backs, Tay admitted. But first, let's find somewhere to rest that isn't made of metal and emergency rations. New Horizons' central plaza bustled with activity, a dizzying mix of species from across the sector conducting trade, sharing information, and simply living outside the strict controls of the major powers. Nari stayed close to Tay, overwhelmed by the crowds after weeks in the confined ship. I need to contact some people, Tay said as they found temporary lodging in a quiet section, catering to non-Craxian visitors. There are human diplomatic channels that should know about what happened at Vespera 9. Nari sank onto the room's bed, a real bed, not a ship's bunk, and felt an unexpected wave of emotion. I'm not going back, she said suddenly. Even if I could, I can't live like that anymore. Tay sat beside her. You don't have to. The next morning brought a surprise. As they ventured into the station's market district seeking supplies, Nari froze at the sight of familiar gill structures and luminescent skin patterns. Not just one, but nearly a dozen Salacians moved through the crowd, talking freely without the watchful presence of Craxian overseers. There are others here, she breathed, unable to hide her shock. One of the Salacians noticed her staring and approached cautiously. Recently arrived? He asked in their native language, which few outsiders bothered to learn. Yes, Nari replied, still stunned. From Vespera 9. The stranger's markings flashed in recognition. I'm Juan. We heard about the raider attack. No, survivors, they said. They were wrong, Tay interjected, stepping forward. Juan's eyes widened at the human's presence. You're with her? He saved me, Nari explained, when everyone else left me for dead. That afternoon they were invited to a gathering of Salacian refugees who had established a small community on New Horizon. In a private room above a quiet cafe, Nari found herself surrounded by more of her people than she had seen in one place since childhood. We've been collecting information, explained Jin, an older female who seemed to be a leader among them. Documenting Craxian labor practices, recording testimonies, but we lack outside support. Tay listened intently as they described conditions across Craxian space, the systematic exploitation of Salacian technical skills, the separation of families, the restricted movement and limited rights. Your people's government doesn't know the full extent of this, Jin told Tay directly. The Craxians are careful to present a legitimate face to human diplomatic missions. That can change, Tay said, his quiet voice carrying unexpected authority. I have contacts in human space who will listen. Later, as they walked along New Horizons' observation deck, watching ships come and go against the backdrop of stars, Nari turned to Tay. You're not just a researcher, are you? She asked directly. Tay was silent for a long moment, watching a human transport ship prepare for departure. My research is genuine, he finally said. But it serves multiple purposes. You're gathering intelligence, Nari realized, about Craxian activities. He didn't deny it. Humans prefer to understand situations fully before taking action. We've suspected the Craxians of treaty violations for years but lacked first-hand evidence. And now you have me, Nari said softly. A witness. You're more than that, Tay corrected her. You're the beginning of something important. Over the following weeks, Nari became a bridge between worlds. Her technical knowledge helped improve communication systems for the growing Salacian community. Her first-hand accounts of Craxian labor practices were recorded and encrypted for transmission to human diplomatic channels. And most importantly, her story, of being saved by a human when her own overseers abandoned her, began to spread. Other species on New Horizon took notice. Those with their own grievances against the Craxian Empire began sharing information, creating networks, finding common cause where before there had been isolated suffering. Tay received a response from his contacts sooner than expected. Human diplomatic representatives would come to New Horizon for direct talks with the Salacian refugees. It wasn't official recognition yet, but it was a beginning. They're sending someone from the Interspecies Coalition, Tay told Nari as they prepared for the meeting. This could lead to formal protection status for your people. Because of you, she said. He shook his head. Because of us. What we went through together, It matters. It shows what's possible. The night before the human representatives were due to arrive, Nari found Tai on the observation deck looking out at the stars. "Are you nervous?" she asked, joining him at the railing. "About tomorrow?" "No." He turned to face her. "This is just the beginning. The Craxians won't change their ways easily. It will be a long process." "But not impossible," Nari said. Her luminescent markings glowed brighter, a sign of hope among her people. "Not impossible," Tay agreed with a smile. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the slow dance of ships and stars. Nari thought about the strange path that had brought her here, from technician to survivor, to refugee, to diplomat of sorts. All because one human had refused to leave her behind. "In Salatian tradition," she said softly, "when someone saves your life, you're bound to them forever. Not as a debt, but as a connection." Tay considered this. "Humans have similar ideas. We call it friendship." Nari smiled at the simple word that somehow encompassed everything they had survived together. "Friendship," she repeated. "I like that." As New Horizons lights dimmed for the station's night cycle, they remained on the observation deck, two unlikely allies planning a future neither could have imagined alone. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new allies, new possibilities. But for tonight it was enough to stand together under the stars, no longer predator and prey, no longer rescuer and victim, but equals at the beginning of something greater than themselves, a new alliance born from being left for dead,